What's up, guys? It is Wednesday, August 10th. It's 9:50 a.m. and this is the daily newsletter and slash deep dive because we're going to cover the search for a world currency. And we're going to go kind of back through history and pull up things that we've never even pulled up before. So let's dive in. So first, we know the central bank digital currency tracker. We know that this world's going to light up like a Christmas tree with blue once everybody launches, but we're getting close because orange, pilot phase, purple, proof of concept, green research. By 2025, this thing will be lit up, I'm telling you. And this goes into kind of fulfilling the end goal of having a world currency, because once all these countries launch their own respective countries' digital currency, then there needs to be a world currency to bridge them all. So let's dive into what that could be. So abandoned sinking US dollar ship, and this is August of 2019. Top UK bankster pushes for new synthetic hegemonic currency. Bank of England head Mark Carney has urged his fellow central bankers to embrace tech like Facebook's Libra to build a multipolar system, warning against swapping one currency hegemon for another unless it's their hegemon. Acknowledging that the US dollar's days as the world reserve currency are numbered, he gushed that technology has the potential to disrupt the network externalities that prevent the incumbent global reserve currency from being displaced, and to ensure that Western central banks are properly positioned to take the helm in whatever system replaces it. Carney declared that a Libra-like currency, with a few tweaks to silence critics, can bring about a new multipolar international monetary financial system during a speech at the Fed-sponsored Jackson Hole Economic Policy Symposium on Friday. Blythe acceptance of the status quo is misguided. He warned a who's who of status quo representatives, shocking many with his suggestion of radical change. When change comes, it shouldn't be to swap one currency hegemon for another. Any unipolar system is unsuited to a multipolar world. But it soon became clear his objective was to one particular country winning the unipolar sweepstakes, as he acknowledged that China has long since overtaken the US trade volume, and the yuan is logically next in line for reserve currency status. The yuan had too many problems, though he couldn't name any, instead admitting that with the Belt and Road Initiative unfolding, China was ideally positioned to fill the void left by the decaying dollar. And a multipolar global economy requires a new international monetary financial system to realize its full potential. How to get there without the economic carnage that usually surrounds such a massive paradigm shift? That's where pseudo-decentralized cryptocurrency comes in, he's suggested. We would do well to think through every opportunity, including those presented by new technologies, to create a more balanced and effective system. Mark Zuckerberg met with Carney while Libra was still in the planning process, and while neither have been forthcoming about what they discussed, Carney is one of the few non-corporate leaders to express unqualified support for the not-quite cryptocurrency, which he calls the most high-profile of electronic payment systems, even though it hasn't actually been rolled out yet. Okay, so let's see. Carney framed the embrace of a synthetic hegemonic currency as a natural step in breaking up with the dollar. Through Libra is backed by a basket of currencies that includes not only the dollar, but also the pound, euro, and Swiss franc. Noting that trouble in the U.S. economy tends to spill over into emerging market economies, which have difficulty absorbing the shock, he claimed the Libra-like coin could reduce the negative impact on those countries if the dollar takes a dive, as if placing emerging markets at the mercy of U.S., UK, and European central banks solved the problem. Far from breaking up with the dollar, adopting any central bank-backed crypto as a reserve currency would just make the unhealthy relationship polygamous. With the U.S. posed on the brink of a recession, alienating its allies with sanctions regime that violates their economic sovereignty, and ramping up a trade war it can't conceivably win with China, it's not surprising that the establishment, like Carney, are finally coming to terms with the post-dollar future. But a central bank governor, even one a few months away from retirement, proposing such a huge paradigm shift doesn't happen if the central bank doesn't benefit from that shift. For a talk touting the virtues of a synthetic hegemonic currency, Carney's omission of actual cryptos, Bitcoin being the obvious name. Let's see. Yeah, so a single world hegemonic currency to displace the dollar. And that's what he was calling here. So he calls for a global monetary system to replace the dollar. And he said that the world's reliance on the US dollar won't hold. It needs to be replaced by a new international monetary and financial system based on many more global currencies. In the speech at the annual Jackson Hole gathering of central bankers in the U.S., he called for the International Monetary Fund to take charge of a new system of currencies, ensuring emerging economies from destructive capital outflows in dollars and removing their need to hoard U.S. currency. So let's keep going on that. Yep, so the same article again. Let's see if we find anything different in there. Okay, so by leveraging the medium of exchange role of a reserve currency, a synthetic hegemonic currency might smooth the transition that the IMFS needs. All right, let's keep going. So this is in June of 2022. We see using central bank digital currencies across borders, lessons from practical experiments. So let's see what we can find here. And we're going to look up our favorite keywords. So cross-border payments, yep. Multiple central bank digital currencies. All right, let's look up some keywords. So we'll do wholesale. So central bank digital currencies could help to deliver better cross-border payments. 9 out of 10 central banks are exploring CBDCs, both conceptually and technically, either in retail or wholesale form or both. Work on wholesale CBDCs is increasingly driven by reasons related to cross-border payments efficiency. The G20 has made enhancing cross-border payments a priority and endorsed a comprehensive program in the form of a set of 19 building blocks led by the Financial Stability Board and the BIS Committee on Payments and Market Infrastructures to address the key challenges. As part of the more forward-looking work of the roadmap, one building block considers how to factor an international dimension into the design of CBDCs. In response to the G20 call for action, the BIS and Innovation Hub is coordinating experiments on how this can be done. At present, 3 cross-border CBDC projects with central banks and private sector partners around the world have been completed, and more are planned right there. Bank of International Settlements Innovation Hub has conducted 4 cross-border CBDC experiments over the last 18 months. They are part of a broader portfolio of projects that examine different aspects of retail and wholesale CBDC in both the domestic and cross-border context. The Bank of International Settlements Innovation Hub's 4 experiments are all focused on wholesale environments in which multiple central bank digital currencies are transferred either individually or against another CBDC or a tokenized security. These trials involve cross-border access to central bank digital currency and were based on distributed ledger technology and featured similarities in the tested use cases conducted among regional partners. So let's keep going and see. So use cases. All 4 experiments settled a variety of cross-border payment types. For example, all projects tested cross-border and offshore payments. Moreover, a significant risk in wholesale markets is foreign exchange settlement risk. Hence, all experiments included payment versus payment protection to remove this risk. However, Jura differed from the other 3 experiments by including tokenized commercial paper, which broadened the settlement use cases. There it is. All right, now let's see if we can find anything else. So interoperability. So technical design in terms of interoperability, wholesale central bank digital currencies were made interoperable with each other using a common platform or a common platform with separate subnetworks so that each central bank maintains individual control over its wholesale central bank digital currency, and the platforms are operated by the central banks who have issued CBDCs into the system. So we see here that project scope, experiment design, we have cross-border all checked off, central banks, private central banks. Hyperledger BSU is the distributed ledger technology for this. And if we look at that, so I think Hyperledger BSU is Ethereum based. Looks like it's Ethereum based. Corda, we already know, Ripple, XRP, Corda, Quorum, and then Bridge Ledger. I've never heard of that one, so let's look into that. Well, it doesn't look like there is one, but let's keep going. So Corda, Quorum, we already know. So transaction type, real value simulated. Rate, anything? Nope. All right, let's keep going. We have a couple things here. The future monetary system. A burst of creative innovation is underway in money and payments, opening up vistas of a future digital monetary system that adapts continuously to serve the public interest. And let's dive into that. This is long. Okay, we're gonna do this one in another video. We'll do a whole video about the Bank of International Settlements and go through all these reports. But for the meantime, let's keep going. Because Bank of India is preparing for a Indonesia is working to issue a wholesale digital rupiah. I think we learned that in the central bank digital currency video I did. And then we got ECB consults experts over privacy enhancing digital Eurotech. I believe we learned that in the central bank digital currency video. I think some of these are from that because I wanted to dive into it more. So I'm going to skip these and get to the world currency stuff. All right, so first off, central bank digital currencies for cross-border payments report to the G20. We got our top of the pinnacle here. We got the Bank of International Settlements, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund. You couldn't be at the highest levels than that. But let's keep seeing what we can find here. We're going to save this one too for the Bank of International Settlements one because it's a lot and I want to keep this simple. So let's go to this because this is the big kahuna. It's working paper series towards the holy grail of cross-border payments. So the holy grail of cross-border payments is a solution allowing cross-border payments to be immediate, cheap, universal, and settled in a secure settlement medium. The search for such a solution is as old as international commerce and the implied need to pay. The paper describes current visions how to eventually find this holy grail within the next decade by 2030. Fits the timeline perfectly. Namely, though, modernized correspondent banking, emerging cross-border fintech solutions, Bitcoin, global stablecoins, interlinked instant payment systems with foreign exchange conversion layer, interlinked central bank digital currency with foreign exchange conversion layer, and for each, settlement mechanisms are explained and an assessment is provided on its potential to be the holy grail of cross-border payments. Several solutions are suitable for improving cross-border payments significantly, and some could even be the holy grail. So, non-technical summary. The holy grail of cross-border payments is a solution which allows cross-border payments to be 1. Immediate, 2. Cheap, 3. Of universal reach, so worldwide, and 4. Settled in a secure settlement medium such as central bank money. This search for the Holy Grail has been ongoing for many centuries, hundreds of years. In 2020, improving cross-border payments was set as a key priority by the G20. The G20 asked the Financial Stability Board, working with the Committee on Payments and Market Infrastructures and other standard-setting bodies, to coordinate a 3-stage process to develop a roadmap to enhance cross-border payments. The conclusion that it is time again for forceful measures to improve cross-border payments resulted from several considerations, namely that 1. Globalization, and thus volumes of cross-border payments have continued and indeed are forecasted to increase, and 2. The fact that although digitalization has made instant cross-border communication quasi-cost-free, there has not been a striking decline in the costs associated with executing cross-border payments. So this paper argues that after more than thousands years of search, the Holy Grail, that's why it's the biggest opportunity of our lives in human history, is getting into this, what we're in right now. Because they've been searching for this solution for thousands of years. And they said that the Holy Grail of cross-border payments can be found within the next 10 years. So thousands of years humanity has gone through searching for a solution, and we're going to see it in the next 10 years. And we know what it is. We already know. And we know the timeline, and we know who's involved, and we know how to profit from it. So we couldn't be set up in a better place, I believe. It's truly unbelievable. But to this end, Section 2 of the paper briefly recalls a few historical elements involving the search for efficient cross-border payments and identifies a number of universal challenges across time. Through a series of financial accounts, the paper then reviews several options for enhancing cross-border payments with a view towards reaching the Holy Grail. Section 3 covers correspondent banking, both in its current implementation as well as a modernized version. Section 4 reviews emerging fintech solutions, which has already delivered in terms of offering cheaper than ever cross-border payments for certain currencies and use cases. Section 5 discusses Bitcoin, which is distinct from the alternatives as it relies on a completely different settlement asset, which is not linked to any fiat currency. Section 6 turns to global stablecoins, such as the one envisioned initially by Facebook's Libra Diem. Section 7 unpacks the case of interlinking domestic payment systems through a cross-system and foreign exchange conversion layer. And finally, Section 8 analyzes the case of central bank digital currencies, again interlinked cross-border through an FX conversion layer. Each of the arrangements covered in Section 3 to 8 are assessed in terms of their actual or potential efficiency, architectural parsimoniousness, I don't know what that word is, competitiveness, and relating to that, preservation of monetary sovereignty. Section 9 concludes that the interlinking of domestic payment systems and future interoperability of CBDCs are the most promising avenues, albeit subject to a strong progress being made on the AML CFT compliance side to ensure straight-through processing for the large majority of cross-border payments. So if we read the report, right? So right here, cross-border payments consist of transactions where the payer and payee, and typically their financial institutions, are located in different jurisdictions. They are more complex than domestic payments as they often involve different national legal and regulatory frameworks, more than one currency, multiple time zones, and often need to be facilitated through several intermediaries and financial market infrastructures. In parallel to domestic payments, cross-border payment flows can be broadly segregated into two subclasses. First, cross-border retail payments include payments between non-financial corporates, businesses serving their customers following a sale or a purchase of goods, or payments disposed for other reasons. So money sent by international migrants to their families, fund transfers to students abroad, etc. Although cross-border retail payments consist of often smaller value transactions, they are generally of high volume. Second, wholesale cross-border payments. So remember the retail, wholesale, how we're saying Stellars for retail, where XRP is for wholesale. So they're laying this out to a T. Second, wholesale cross-border payments are high-value transactions. While large-scale international payment flows among commercial banks can be made on behalf of their clients, including for the purpose of settling retail payments, they can also take place between financial institutions on their own accord, typically relating to a variety of foreign exchange operations. The current paper focuses on cross-border retail payments, although some of the solutions also cover the case of wholesale payments. A second important distinction for all cross-border payments is the one between those involving a cross-currency foreign exchange conversion and those which do not. In the former case, another party offers a foreign exchange service, while in the case of the latter, the payment results in a change of the cross-border currency position of the payer and or payee. Describing both examples, we argue that a cross-border payments with currency conversion is the superior alternative from a policy perspective, at least for those jurisdictions with stable currencies. Alright, so here we go. The holy grail of cross-border payments is a solution which allows cross-border payments to be immediate, cheap, universal, in the sense of covering ideally every addressable party in the world, and settled in a secure settlement medium such as central bank money. Cross-border payments, use cases, crypto liquidity, central bank digital currency, right? Everything that article is saying. Alright, now we're going to pull this side by side. So the holy grail of cross-border payments, Ripple, cross-border payments, is a solution in which allows cross-border payments to be immediate, settles in seconds. That's immediate to me. Cheap. Let's see.
The market for global payments is immense. Estimated at over $130 trillion and growing. But its infrastructure is archaic. The challenge? Trapped capital. Intermediaries with high fees. Slow settlements. incomplete transaction data, frustrating failure rates, and single-point security exposures. At Ripple, we understand these challenges and have created an innovative payment solution that leverages the XRP ledger and the digital asset XRP. XRP is the perfect crypto for payments because it transacts quickly at very low cost with high throughput and is carbon neutral. Ripple's payment solution uses XRP to bridge fiat currencies, eliminate pre-funding, and makes payment terms visible, which supports our partners' compliance efforts. And we offer affordable line of credit options that enable capital agility and rapid scaling. When you are ready to scale to new corridors, our network provides you access to premier receivers in key markets that you can start transacting with in as little as 4 weeks. Here's how a Ripple payment works. The sending institution requests a fiat-to-fiat quote on pricing and foreign exchange, or FX. The sender receives and approves a quote with pre-negotiated FX margin from the receiver. The sender submits the payment instructions. The sender debits funds from a digital asset wallet funded by Ripple with XRP and transfers funds to the receiver in less than 3 seconds. The receiver immediately pays out the end beneficiary in fiat according to the payment instructions. In parallel, the receiver converts XRP to fiat. The sending institution is invoiced at the start of the following business week, post-transaction. The benefits are clear. Payments in seconds with lower transaction fees that are available when you need them, are reliable, transparent, and are managed elegantly. From remittance to small and medium enterprise to treasury payments, Ripple transforms your global payments. This week, post-transaction when you need them. Parallel, the receiver converts invoiced at the start of the following business week. Clear. Payments in seconds with lower.
So, right there, payments in seconds, immediate,
Payments in seconds with lower
transaction fees, cheap. Look at the world there. Seems universal to me.
transaction fees that are available when you need them.
24/7, 365. It's always running. Available with no blackout dates. So, universal, immediate, cheap, and in the sense of covering ideally every addressable party in the world, settled in a secure settlement medium such as central bank money. And that's exactly kind of what
Digital asset wallet funded by Ripple
they're
with
saying right
XRP
here,
and transfers.
right? And then we see all the central banks partnering with Ripple. So, like, guys, I mean, there's no other company in the world doing this to this magnitude. It's right here in front of our eyes. So, very big stuff going on. So, while still a cross-border payment, the account's payment, okay. So, unlike settlement in commercial bank money, which by definition implies the potential for liquidity and our credit risks to arise for end users, both forms of risk do not apply when transactions are settled in central bank money. So, in 2020, cross-border payments is a key priority. So, short history, right? The search for the Holy Grail since the Middle Ages. The process through which cross-border payments have been settled has evolved over the centuries. To a significant extent, medieval foreign trade and therefore cross-border payments were facilitated through the shipping of bullion or via payment in gold coin. Nonetheless, payment through coins was inconvenient, costly, and time-consuming, as in many cases, it was necessary to pay a professional money changer to ensure that the type and quality of any coins tendered were of the required standard. Therefore, the first major financial instrument employed for the purpose of executing international transactions was the Bill of Exchange, which came into being in the Arab world during the early Islamic era. In short, a bill of exchange was a written order by the issuer which instructed a counterparty to remit an amount, either immediately through a sight bill or by a fixed date via a term bill. If the drawer failed to pay, the drawer would be entitled to seek compensation through the courts, which would immediately execute on order against the failing party. So, as noted by Cohn, the predominant function of bills exchange was for remittance and trade finance and provides a means of payments at a significantly lower cost than shipping bullion. Yet, even at this early stage, financial institutions had established a system of mutual accounts through the introduction of correspondent banking, in which one bank provided a service to another bank. In this way, banks were able to offer mutual extensions of credit to one another through no-show accounts. That, from the point of view from the other respective bank, was recognized as a no-show account. By design, bills of exchange through correspondent bank arrangements permitted traders to repatriate funds from one jurisdiction to another, which mitigated the necessity of the shipping of bullion to complete a payment. For instance, a London wool exporter could have originally accumulated deposits in Antwerp, while the Flemish wool exporter would increase their deposits in London. Yeah, we'll keep going here. So prior to the First World War, global trade and cross-border payments had increased remarkably, ushering in the first era of globalization. Whilst bills of exchange continued to be employed as an instrument of cross-border remittance, electronic direct deposit transfers through correspondent banking arrangements began in the midst of the 19th century after the laying of the first transatlantic cable and gradually accelerated. Although using telex messages for international interbank communication fundamentally increased the degree of financial integration, security and a lack of automation remained an issue even in the post-war era. This prompted 239 banks from 15 countries to form a cooperative utility, the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication, to reconcile problems in communicating across borders and to establish a common messaging standard. By the time SWIFT became live in 1977, 518 institutions from 22 nations were employing the SWIFT MT messaging standard, and SWIFT has recently announced that by November 2025, it will fully adopt the ISO 222 messaging standard for all cross-border payments. Despite numerous evolutions, many of the principal challenges associated with cross-border payments have been consistent across time. The list of frictions in cross-border payments shown in the table is largely based on FSB. In addition, the measures considered currently by the G20 to address such frictions are outlined and structured in building blocks. So, 2020, from 1200, they've been trying to figure this out, guys. We're talking over 800 years. And we're alive in the time that they're going to fix it, and we can profit from it. So it tells everything, the problems, correspondent banking. See, they're talking a lot about correspondent banking, right? And now we can see that what's the natural step in evolution of international trade? Getting rid of correspondent banking. So let's see what they talk about here. Put the power of crypto in more hands. Seamlessly buy and sell whole crypto. Benefits of Ripple Liquidity Hub. How Ripple's Liquidity Hub works. So it might be under cross-border payments. So free up working capital. Eliminated pre-funding requirements and flexible repayment terms help unlock trapped capital. So let's see where it says it. Yeah. So this is in 2015, 7 years ago. Bank of International Settlements describes peak correspondent banking. Banks around the world today rely on the correspondent banking system to facilitate international payments. It's no wonder that then the health of the system is the utmost importance to central banks around the world. That's why Bank of International Settlements, sometimes described as the central bank for central banks, commissioned a report on the state of correspondent banking. The report doesn't drop too many surprises. The correspondent banking system is feeling the strain of broader trends, notably around compliance costs and risk tolerance. Part of this might be the bigger is better and one-size-fits-all model running its course. As such, rather than seeing a more integrated, interconnected network, we're just seeing the opposite, where the large correspondents are limiting the number of relationships they maintain over time. And in a sense, the report describes the arrival of some sort of peak correspondent banking scenario, which the CPMI chalks down to a more stringent regulatory environment and increased sensitivity. The result is that whole regions are getting cut out of the global payments network completely. So it's talking about the problem, the cross-border payments, the correspondent banking. And if we see, deliver instant cross-border payments with on-demand liquidity on RippleNet. Financial institutions can use XRP to source liquidity without pre-funding, and that's pre-funding is that correspondent banking, what they're talking about here. So you can see right here. So in which one bank provides a service to another bank, we're able to offer mutual extensions of credit to one another through Vostro and Nostro accounts. So if we see Nostro, Vostro, Ripple, XRP. Okay. So that means that if XRP does one day replace Nostro Vostro accounts, its market cap will need to be in the trillions. So Swift versus Ripple, the fight for better, faster, cheaper bank transactions. So just like we were reading, the way people send money from one country to another has not dramatically changed since the 1970s. Despite the advent of the internet and new digital tools, sending money across the world is still complicated. There's no visibility on what occurs during the process, and settlements can take multiple days and are usually very costly. San Francisco-based company Ripple envisions a world in which value can be transmitted as quickly and cheaply as information. They have a compelling case. 180 trillion worth of cross-border payments are made every year, with a combined cost of more than $1.7 trillion a year. XRP and Ripple would be able to save $1.7 trillion a year through utilizing on-demand liquidity instead of the current SWIFT system. So how cross-border payments made today talks about banks with direct relationships have accounts set up at their partner banks overseas. These foreign accounts are called Nostro Vostro accounts and are pre-funded with foreign currency to enable cross-border transfers. So Bank of America's eyes, the British pound account at Barclays in the UK is their Nostro account, foreign currency account. Nostro Vostro. So that's the problem today, is that the SWIFT system, it's old, it's antiquated. They use the Nostro Vostro account, but Ripple's coming in hot with this new solution that eliminates pre-funding and utilizes XRP for on-demand liquidity. Big stuff. So let's keep going here. And we can see prior to the First World War, global trade, cross-border payments. Yep, we read that. All right. Correspondent banking. It's talking about ISO 222. Cross-border payments. So last but not least, the SWIFT GPI initiative promises to improve speed, accountability, and transparency across border payments relying on correspondent banking. SWIFT GPI combines the traditional SWIFT messaging and correspondent banking system with a new set of business rules captured in a set of multilateral service level agreements between participating banks. SWIFT members banks who commit to GPI agree to provide same-day use of funds, transparency of fees, end-to-end payments tracking, and unaltered transfer of remittance information. It ensures that cross-border payments are fast, fully trackable in real time, and confirmation is delivered when the beneficiary account is credited. Thousands of banks in numerous countries have already implemented SWIFT GPI, building on SWIFT's existing infrastructure. And it shares the vision of the holy grail of cross-border payments, with GPI as major contribution to achieve it through correspondent banking. The SWIFT vision for the future is simple: to make real-time, 24/7 cross-border payments as seamless, convenient, cost-efficient, and accessible as domestic payments. Talks about settlement mechanisms, non-instantaneous correspondent banking. It's talking about all of these kind of ways of doing things. But I want to go down to one single system can be used as is for the entire world. No further interlinking is necessary. Cross-border payments in Bitcoin appear as efficient as domestic payments in Bitcoin without any further investment needed. This is also because the foreign exchange conversion takes place outside the Bitcoin solution and is left to each user to convert from and into domestic currencies. The absence of intermediaries suggests a high potential for efficiency and no risk from operational and financial failures of intermediaries. And then, however, at the same time, no intermediaries are needed once a sufficient position of Bitcoin is available to a user for payment services, and the user comfortable in accepting Bitcoin positions over time despite the large valuation changes. Nevertheless, the list of Bitcoin drawbacks as means of payments is lengthy. So the underlying technology, and in particular its proof of work layer, is inherently expensive and wasteful. If anything, it proves that a decentralized trust creating mechanism relying on proof of work to render stable a permissionless blockchain is more expensive and less efficient than a centralized or semi-centralized one. So it talks about the inefficiencies of using Bitcoin for cross-border payments. So Bitcoin is unlikely to be the holy grail of cross-border payments, primarily for three reasons: because of proof of work, because of regulatory gaps, and it's not suitable as a domestic payment system. It's not even suitable as that because it's unstable in terms of its purchasing power. So bam, it's not Bitcoin, that's for sure. So let's keep going. So crypto asset, a type of private digital asset that depends primarily on cryptography and distributed ledger or similar technology. Stablecoin, a crypto asset that aims to maintain a stable value relative to a specified asset or a pool or basket of assets. And global stablecoin, a stablecoin with the potential reach and adoption across multiple jurisdictions and the potential to achieve substantial volume. So settlement mechanisms talks about foreign exchange, stablecoins being the holy grail. Let's go to the end. So the holy grail, whereby cross-border payments are immediate, cheap, universal in terms of reach, and settled in a secure settlement medium such as central bank money, is in reach for the first time. This is thanks to the rapid decline in the cost of global electronic data transmission and computer processing, new payment system technology, innovative concepts, and unprecedented political will and global collaboration like the G20 work on enhancing cross-border payments. The review of various visions as to how to achieve the Holy Grail suggests that Bitcoin is the least credible. Stablecoin, traditional correspondent banking, and cross-border fintechs take an intermediary place, but may all contribute to improvement over the next years. From a public policy perspective, stablecoins appear somewhat more problematic than the other two options as they aim at deep closed-loop solutions, market power, and fragmentation. Two solutions, the interlinking of domestic instant payment systems and future CBDCs, both with a competitive foreign exchange conversion layer, may have the highest potential to deliver the Holy Grail for larger cross-border payment corridors as they combine technical feasibility, relative simplicity in their architecture, and maintaining a competitive and open architecture by avoiding the dominance of smaller number of market participants who would eventually exploit their market power. Moreover, monetary sovereignty is preserved and crowding out of local currencies is avoided due to a foreign exchange conversion layer at the border. So interlinking the domestic payment systems would also perform well in terms of preserving the universal reach of correspondent banking, although of course only for the payment areas that are actually interlinked. However, a number of challenges needed to be addressed to set up these solutions. So ranking two solutions at the top raises the questions whether central banks in the industry should really work on both, or whether only one should be selected and the other be dismissed to save on investment costs and focus on all efforts to implement the Holy Grail as soon as possible. So they already have it. A number of arguments speak in favor of developing both solutions. First, there are synergies between the two in the sense that organizing competitive foreign exchange conversion layers is instrumental for both, as well as solving issues of international addressability of accounts, persons, and firms. Second, some foreign exchange and cross-border payments corridors are so large that they can easily support two solutions, and the eventual efficiency of cross-border payments will benefit further from the competition between two approaches. Third, for some cross-border payment corridors, only one solution may eventually prevail, but this could be one or the other. And in view of the many cross-border corridors, it is favorable to have two fully efficient solutions available who can compete to become the solution for specific smaller corridors. XRP, XLM. They're going to allow both. They're the chosen ones. And whoever wins as far as the bigger corridors will be that main solution, and then the other one will fall down to the smaller corridors. So you have one for wholesale, one for retail, or for bigger nations, smaller nations. So therefore, forceful work on both should continue, whereby for CBDC, much of the energy of central banks will obviously be absorbed first for deploying them for domestic retail payments. Central banks should nevertheless keep in mind that CBDC will eventually be expected to make its contribution to efficient cross-border payments with foreign exchange conversion and discuss at a relatively early stage the related interoperability issues. In the meantime, they should support and coordinate the efforts to interlink domestic payment systems for cross-border payments with competitive foreign exchange currency conversion. It's laid out for us right here, guys. The solution, we know it. It's Ripple, and it's going to happen. It's just going to be in time. And remember, I showed you, for those who joined very early, it's on the website. It's the blog post. It was like an article I read back in 2017 called the Uke de Mark. and they used it back in the medieval times. So let me find that. So Secret World Old World Currency wrote the script for today's crypto profits. I'm going to share this with you guys. But the 14th century manuscript depicting bankers in an Italian counting house. So it was called the Ecu de Mark. It was like a secret virtual currency. You can't hold it or see it or smell it. In other words, it was an abstraction. Existed only as an entry on a paper ledger shared by a select group of merchants and bankers. Although it was virtual, it had real value. A single coin could be converted into 2.25 pounds of silver. So, oh, here we go. Is that example? They literally, no shit. They literally used the example from here in that. No shit, huh? We got to go back up to that. Kidding me? Are you kidding me? Oh my God. All right, ready? Right here. So, for instance, a London wool exporter could have originally accumulated deposits in Antwerp, while a Flemish wool exporter would increase their deposits in London. So, then we go to this. A merchant from Lyon who wanted to buy, say, Florentine wool could go to this banker and borrow something called a bill of exchange. Isn't this what they're calling it too here? Bills of exchange, right? Same shit. This was a credit note, an IOU, but it was not denominated in the French livre or Florentine lira. Its value is expressed in the Ecu de Mark, a private currency used by this international network of bankers. They used the wool example, and if the Lyonel's merchant or his agent traveled to Florence, the bill of exchange from the banker in Lyon would be recognized by bankers in Florence who would gladly exchange it for local currency. Crazy. So the rise of a new Ecu de Mark, and it's talking about how at least 26 of the world's top 50 banks have agreed to use this new private currency, including Bank of America, UniCredit Bank, the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, Santander Bank. 61 banks in Japan have also agreed to start using it. We believe this new currency and the technology behind it could become the global standard for international bank trades, the same way the Ecu de Mark did 500 years ago. If we're right, we'll see $20 trillion per day in global bank payments transacted across this network. There's your $100 XRP. But that's enough volume to push the value of this digital token 24 cents to $2. Way more. The not-so-swift way to move money around the world is talking about how Swift is not good and how the drawbacks of it. The faster way, more secure way to transfer money. The name of the private currency is Ripple XRP. Right there. There we go. So, same example, same problem, 500 years, thousands of years, solution, XRP, Ripple's platform. This was back in 2017, guys. December 2017. We're like 5 years later, and now the European Central Bank is coming out, and Digital Pound Foundation coming out with this same exact concept, bill of exchange, talking about the problem and back then, hundreds, thousands of years ago, and it's saying the solution, how we're close to the holy grail of cross-border payments. And it's XRP, it's Ripple. They're not going to come out and say it, but we already know what it is. It's right there in front of our eyes. So now let's go to kind of some initiatives going on across the world, right? And see what is happening on those ends. So we got, following the financial crisis, this is Basel III. It's happening January 1st, 2023. Following the financial crisis of 07-08, the Basel III reforms were published in 2010-2011. The standards set new definitions of capital, higher capital ratio requirements, and a leverage ratio requirement as a backstop measure. Talks about, in the following years, the Basel Committee published regulatory standards for the liquidity coverage ratio and net stable funding ratio, and updated the standards for market risk following a fundamental review of the trading book. The Basel III Finalizing Post-Crisis Reforms, published by the Basel Committee in 2017, commonly known as Basel 3.1, cover further reforms of the existing framework. The new standards that come into effect in January 2023, that is the FRTB and Basel 3.1, sometimes referred to Basel 4. So this is happening, and this is coming into play January of this upcoming year. And why is this important? First of all, I'm going to go and say that I think what's going to happen is XRP is going to be adopted by all the world's central banks. They're going to back it by all the world's kind of bonds. So the top tier bonds of the world, Chinese bonds, the UK government's bonds, European bonds, United States bonds, and XRP will be backed by those top tier kind of bonds of governments, as well as precious metals and commodities like gold, silver, and it's going to become that global private currency that these central banks transact with each other on the back end, backed by every government's bonds and kind of commodities and stuff like that. And you're going to see instant like that XRP shoot up over $1,000. That's how it's going to be. I fully believe that to be the case, and it's going to be like this because it's not going to be a slow rise up. It's going to be an announcement, and then bam, it's done. If you're in, you're in. If you're not, you're not. And that's how it's going to hit those price points, because they're going to back it by bonds, and bonds have a par value of $2,000. I'm sorry, $1,000. So when a bond is trading at par, it's trading at $1,000. So that's how I believe it's going to happen and how it's going to pan out, because for the first time ever, we're going to hit that holy grail cross-border payments. And with the backing of commodities and all different countries' bonds, that's what's going to make it be $10,000, not $1,000. It will be way more to facilitate the international kind of commerce and everything like that. So let's keep going into kind of the history and other kind of initiatives. So the international dollar, also known as Geary Chemist dollar, is a hypothetical unit of currency that has the same purchasing power parity that the US dollar had in the United States at a given point in time. It is mainly used in economics and financial statistics for various purposes, most notably to determine and compare the purchasing power parity and gross domestic product of various countries and markets. So the unit is often, okay, here we go. The year 1990 or 2000 often used as a benchmark year for comparisons that run through time. The unit is often abbreviated $2,000 or 2,000 international dollars. 2000. It is based on the twin concepts of purchasing power parities of currencies and the international average prices of commodities. That's it right there. The international average prices of commodities. It shows how much of a local currency unit is worth within the country's borders. So there we go. So figures expressed in international dollars cannot be converted to another country's currency using current market exchange rates. Instead, they must be converted using the country's PPP exchange rate used in the study. So according to the IMF, below is the exchange rate of international dollar to local currency of respective countries in 2021. So they're still using it, I think. Crazy. But just another initiative kind of outlining what XRP is going to fulfill. And then we have the European Currency Unit. So the XEU. So European Currency Unit was a unit account used by the European Economic Community and composed of a basket of member country currencies. The ECU came into operation on March 13, 1979, and was assigned the ISO 4217 code. The ECU replaced the European unit of account at parity in 1979, and it was later replaced by the euro at parity on the 1st of January 1999. As a unit of account, the ECU was not a circulating currency and did not replace or override the value of the currency of EEC member countries. However, it was used to price some international financial transactions and capital transfers. Bam! Right there, another initiative. It's like they were testing this out for years, and then they finally found a solution to make it work. 1979, March 13th, right there, the ECU. So let's keep going, because there's more. There's the green pound. So in the UK, the green pound was the common name for an exchange rate that was used to calculate the value of financial support within the European Union's common agricultural policy until 1999. Prior to the institution of a common currency, the ECC decided in 1962 to denominate its transactions in its own internal unit of account. Initially, the gold parity unit of account fixed to the value of gold and equivalent to the US dollar. Following the devaluation of the French franc and the revaluation of the Dutch mark in 1969, the governments involved considered that agricultural support should not be subject to the fluctuations of floating exchange rates, arguing that lower prices would be unacceptable for farmers while higher prices would be inflationary. Instead, they continued to use a form of fixed exchange rates for agricultural support, resulting in the so-called agricultural conversion rates or green exchange rates, including the green pound after the UK's ascension to the EEC on the 1st of January 1973. Another one. There it is. So now we have eco currency. And this is, the eco is the name of the proposed common currency of the Economic Community of West African States. Plans originally called for the West African Monetary Zone states to introduce the currency first, which would eventually be merged with the CFA franc, which is used by the French-speaking West African region with the West African Economic and Monetary Union. It will enable the states to gain complete fiscal and monetary independence from France. And it's kind of a regional currency between West Africa. So then we have the Asian Monetary Unit, is a basket of currencies proposed by the Japanese government's Research Institute of Economy, Trade, and Industry. It is similar to and modeled on the European Currency Unit, which we saw, predecessor to the euro. The Asian Monetary Unit was created as a joint project of 21st Century COE project. It is a common currency basket composed of 13 East Asian countries, Japan, China, South Korea. These data have been published on the website since September 2005. After 4 years passed, the common currency basket composed of 13 AMU currencies plus 3 other countries, Australia, New Zealand, and India, which are strongly connected with Asian countries, is newly created as AMU-wide. The AMU-wide, which is a common currency basket composed of a wider range of currencies, will be expected to use as a surveillance indicator corresponding to the extensive regional economies. Another one. Then we have the African Monetary Union. And the African Monetary Union is the proposed creation of the Economic Monetary Union for the countries of the African Union, administered by the African Central Bank. Such a union would call for the creation of a new unified currency similar to the euro. The hypothetical currency is sometimes referred to as the Afro or Afrik. The Abuja Treaty, an international agreement signed on June 3rd, 1991. So this was signed on June 3rd, 1991. And it created the African Economic Community, and it called for back then, for the African Central Bank to follow by 2028. As of 2019, the plan is to establish the African Economic Community with a single currency by 2023. We're so close. So this has been planned for a very, very long time. Now we got the World Currency Unit. So there are two different types of World Currency Unit in use today that have different origins and usages. The WCU was proposed by Lok Sang Ho of Lingyang University, Hong Kong. Here we go. The World Currency Unit was first intended to be the basis for The World Currency Unit was first intended to be the basis for denominating global bonds, a debt instrument that is issued globally and is subscribable by people and institutions around the world. Simply put, it is a GDP-weighted basket of key currencies, each of which is indexed against inflation for the relevant countries. The WCU is defined with respect to a base year so that each unit represents the same global purchasing power as at that base year when it is equal to $1. If there's inflation, the World Currency Unit will be worth more than $1 after the base year, but will represent the same purchasing power. It is a standardized basket of currencies, the national currencies of the 20 largest national economies measured by GDP, established in 2008. The basket is reweighed and semi-annually according to the relative growth of the economies, whereby constituent currencies are replaced by other currencies should the size of the GDP be overtaken by that of another national economy. So, conceived as an apolitical and global alternative to the ECU, it is used as a reference currency for global investors and companies seeking to mitigate bilateral exchange rate volatility. So the world currency unit is an index unit of account that stands for a unit of real global purchasing power. Since each unit by design represents a stable unit of purchasing power, the stipulated interest rate on WCU denominated bonds represents a real interest rate. In principle, the common denomination of bonds by issuers from different parts of the world using the WCU, as well as the greater transparency of real interest rates, will produce more efficient capital markets as savers and borrowers around the world converge in their understanding of what each basis point of interest means and are protected against two key sources of uncertainty, namely inflation and exchange loss risk, which is exactly what's going on right now. And you can see here in 2007, the same person, towards a new international monetary order, the world currency unit, and the global indexed bond. Global indexed bond. That's what I like to call XRB. So global bond. Global bond is a bond which is issued in several countries at the same time. It's typically issued by a large multinational corporation or sovereign entity with a high credit rating. By offering the bond to many investors, a global issuance can reduce borrowing costs. These bonds are usually issued by large multinational organizations, sovereign entities, both of which regularly carry out large fundraising exercises. By issuing global bonds, an issuing entity is able to attract funds from a vast set of investors and reduce its cost of borrowing. Global bonds are issued in different currencies and distributed in the currency of the country where it is issued. For example, a global bond issued in the United States dollar, while a global bond issued in the Netherlands will be in euros. Bonds are loaned in terms of years. For example, a 3-year US $2 billion global bond will be paid back by the country it is loaned to within 3 years at face value plus the interest rate. Here we go. So now we got more here. This is in search of a unit of stable global purchasing power, July 2018. Same guy, the Lok Sang Ho guy. The paper introduces an improved version of the world currency unit, a synthetic unit of account. Remember the synthetic hegemonic currency? So this guy from the 2000s who said the world currency unit, who did that whole paper, now in 2018, at the time that Mark Carney was talking about the synthetic hegemonic currency, is now saying an improved version of the world currency unit, a synthetic unit of account representing constant real purchasing power. If commodity prices and bonds, so that's where I said the gold and bonds and stuff like that, are quoted in this unit while allowing settlement in any currency, what does XRP let you do, right? Real prices and real interest rates will become more transparent. We show that the real price of commodities are sensitive to the movements in the nominal exchange value of the US dollar and that they are grandeur caused by movements in the US dollar's nominal effective exchange rate. The proposed unit has implications for efficiency and the stability of the international monetary order. There we go. Crazy. I'm not going to dive into all that. I think you guys get the point. But let's keep going. So in search of a monetary anchor, I think I wasn't able to pull this up because it was like a Chinese thing. Yeah, I wasn't able to do it. So implications of the eco-currency on African regional trade. I don't know if I found it. So with its recent resurgence, no, there was nothing here. Yeah, so that's it, guys. A lot of stuff in here. So much stuff. But exciting times ahead. And to wrap it up, in summary, my prediction, there's going to be an announcement. I don't know how it's going to play out, but I know what is going to eventually happen is XRP will be the global world digital reserve currency. It will be backed by commodities and global bonds. And it will be backed by bonds of all the nations. So it will be like a global bond mixed with commodities, and it will be used by institutions, central banks, and it will be an accepted kind of private digital currency between them, and it will be like gold, digital gold, would you say? So a lot of people say Bitcoin's digital gold. It's not. XRP is going to be the digital gold that will be able to convert it into anything of value, any world currency, any world bond, any commodity, and it will truly be the most liquid asset on earth eventually. and it's going to play out. And we have a lot of historical confluence to point that out, as well as new articles and papers to show us that that is the case. So that's it, guys. That's the In Search of a World Currency, and it's coming closer than we expect. So I'll see you guys in the next video.